everyone, it's Hailey. Happy Bookmas Day 16. Today I'm going to be showing you guys the books that I finally read this year. To figure out what I wanted to do for this video for a while. I don't know why this day, it just kept on changing, but I ended up combining my tier ranking and all the books that I read. So that was yesterday's video for Bookmas Day 15. I'll link it down below in case you guys missed it, but I had an extra spot and I had quite a few ideas, didn't know what I wanted to do. So I asked you guys over on Instagram and you seemed really into the idea of me sharing the books that I finally read this year. I came up with this idea. It's a new one this year because there are a lot of books that I had put off for years. I have had these books for so long and I ended up finally getting to them, and I figured it's a great time to talk about them. So before we get into the video, don't forget to click that subscribe button and then click the bell icon so you'll be notified whenever I post. I'm posting a new video every single day for the entire month of December, so you don't want to miss any of those. But without further ado, let's get into it. This is literally such a giant pile. I don't know, I don't even know where to start. So the first book is The War Outside by Monica Hesse. I had this book for so long. I got an arc of it at, I think it was the first book con that I went to, so that was a long time ago, and I was really excited for it because I had loved this author before. So it's a new historical fiction, it's about something that I hadn't read about before. It was set in an internment camp following a Japanese prisoner and and a German prisoner, and it's just their life in the camps. And for some reason, I just never ended up picking it up. I knew it wasn't going to be the easiest read, so I think because of that, I kept on just putting it off, and I finally ended up reading it during Bookmas last year, I think is when I read it. If not, it was at the very beginning of the year, and I did actually really enjoy this one. I think it was worth the wait for me. I mean, Monica Hesse is just a fantastic writer, and this was a time period that I hadn't really read about. I mean, it's a time period I've read about, but a situation within that time period that I hadn't read about before. I did read this after reading We Are Not Free, as that was my favorite book that I read last year, and We Are Not Free deals with the same sort of thing, and I did enjoy We Are Not Free more, but I appreciate the stories for being different, just dealing with the same topic. This one kind of spent a little bit less time on my TBR, but Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellefleur is a book that I have mentioned in quite a few TBRs because, I mean, it got so much hype when it came out, and I ended up picking it up shortly after that. I don't even remember exactly when that was, but I didn't actually read it until very recently, and I did actually really enjoy this one. It's kind of an opposites attract romance story, and it's good for this time of year. It's not festive per se, but it does have some festive elements because it's a fake dating arrangement that ends on New Year's Eve, but it has fake dating, opposites attract. Those are two things that I really love, and it's kind of a grumpy sunshine sort of thing as well. It really has a lot of tropes in it, but all of them are done very well, and this is also a sapphic romance. Quite a few of these I actually have read recently, so I haven't talked about them in a recent reads video yet, but that will be coming at the beginning of the new year. I'm gonna have so many of those to do at the beginning of the new year. But The Enigma Game by Elizabeth Wine, I picked this up 2 years ago, I think now, when I didn't know that she had a new book, and then this kind of came out of nowhere. It was a very quiet release, and I recently read it, and I did enjoy this one. It definitely has big shoes to fill because of Rose Under Fire and Codename Verity being so fantastic. I loved those two so much. So this one didn't quite live up to those. However, I really appreciated the story. It definitely brought me to, it's set during World War II, and you're following this group of characters, and they're pilots. She always writes about pilots, but you get to know these characters very well. That's something she does impeccably well, but also the setting, I felt it was a big part of it. This house that they were all in, I could just picture everything and really felt for the characters and everything that they were going through. I couldn't even even tell you how long I've been wanting to read these books, let alone how long I've had them on my TBR. Like, I have physically owned all of these for quite a while, but some of them even before that, I just had them like on my TBR wanting to pick them up. And that is kind of the case with Gilt and Tarnish by Catherine Longshore. Still haven't read Brazen yet. That one, I'm still trying to decide what I want to do because I listened to the audiobook for these, loved it, and Brazen doesn't have an audiobook, which is really sad. But yeah, these ended up on my favorites list of the year. They are Tudor era YA romances. They are like quite an older read, but they are super good. Like, in my opinion, they held up. I had a lot of fun with them. Next is a real TBR veteran, if you will, and that is Orphan Monster Spy by Matt Colleen. I have no clue like when this book came out. When did it come out? Because it definitely, when it came out, I was all over it. 2018. Oh my god, that's so long ago. Wow. Okay, so I have had this book for so long, and I've talked about how cool and interesting and like a high risk situation, how excited I was to read it, and just never ended up getting to it for no particular reason until I finally have. Since 2018. How long is that? I can't do math. Is that 4 years? I think that's 4 years. Wow, that is a very, very long time that I've had this one, but I'm so glad that I finally read it. It's about a Jewish girl who goes undercover as a spy in a Nazi boarding school, and it's really intense. And it's also very scary and sad, and definitely be wary of trigger warnings before going into this one. The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. I have definitely had a journey with this book. I bought it, then I unhauled it, and then I bought it again. And I bought it again because Hannah had said she really enjoyed it, but I ended up DNFing this one. It was not for me. I think I forgot to mention this one in my day 5 video about, no, day 6, about the worst books of the year, where I talked about my DNFs as well. Oh my god, I can't speak. Yeah, this one just, I loved the idea. I loved the concept. That's why I had such like a love-hate relationship with it, but it just wasn't working for me. I was going to trudge through because I was so intrigued by the concept, but I ultimately wasn't enjoying the execution of it. But now I know. I think I have the sequels on there, so I'm gonna have to unhaul those, unfortunately. This one I've also had since it came out. When did this one come out? 2017. Oh my god, that's even worse. 5 years? Holy crap. Next is Heiress Apparently by Diana Ma. This is a prime example of one that I don't think I physically owned this book for very long. I think I picked it up at my Christmas book haul last year. It was either that or the year before, but I'm pretty sure it was last year. But it's one that has been on my radar and I had been wanting to pick up for a very long time. It's one that like, I feel like I've included it on quite a few wish lists. And I don't know if this one was particularly worth the wait. I think it was different than what I expected it to be. I was thinking it was going to be more like a Tokyo Ever After sort of thing where it deals with royalty, but it's not like exactly like that per se. It's kind of a character who she's not really like, she doesn't find out that she's a royal. I mean, kind of, but like mostly she's just a doppelganger sort of thing with her cousin who is a famous influencer. So like she does find out that she has, you know, special upbringing or heritage, if you will. But I just thought it was gonna be a little bit more like Tokyo Ever After, where she's like more immersed in that world. But it wasn't quite that. Next is Challenger Deep by Neil Shusterman. I don't think I've had this one since it came out. I've had it for a really long time now, but this is one that I ended up DNFing as well. I just found the story to be really triggering, so it wasn't for me. Yeah, this has been out since 2015. I don't think I have had it since then. It's a story that deals with schizophrenia though, and I didn't get that much through it because I just found the anxieties of the main character, it was not for me. The Looking Glass Wars by Frank Bador, I finally read this year, and I haven't had this one since it came out for sure because I was looking and it came out in 2006. I didn't realize it was that old. Like I knew it was an older book, but I didn't realize that it was that old. And I think it held up. Like I really enjoyed this Alice in Wonderland retelling. It's one that I have wanted to do an Alice in Wonderland retelling recommendations video for a very long time, but I wanted to read this one first, and now I can actually finally like do that video. It has been years that I've been talking about that and wanting to do that, but I can get to it now. This was a really interesting retelling because it was kind of different than any others that I've read. It had a lot of characters that like had a different characterization than I was used to, and Alice in particular was really different than what I was used to, but I thought it was very cool. I also have had Ties That Tether by Jane Igharo for a fair amount of time. I think that this one came out in 2020 and I have had it since then. Yes, 2020. So a couple of years, but it's another one that I feel like I've included on a number of TBRs and it didn't disappoint. I really liked this one. I think that it should be more hyped up, to be honest, because I haven't heard all that many people talking about it. Maybe it's just me, but I thought it was a very good story. It's about a Nigerian Canadian main character and she is dealing with like a lot in her life, a lot of conflict with her family because of her heritage and because of like the situation she's found herself in. It's one to just go into and I don't think you'll be disappointed. Oh my god, I've had this book for forever, but that is What the Night Sings by Vesper Stamper. This was one of the last books that I read this year and I've had it since before it came out, obviously. So this is actually an arc, but it came out in February 2018. So I think I've had this one since like something in 2017, but I finally read it. I almost unhauled this one quite a few times. Like this was saved from my unhaul pile and I really liked it. It's dealing with World War II, but it's the afterwards. So you're following a character who didn't find out she was Jewish until the war. She had no idea. Her father was like hiding it from her for her safety. So now she's trying to come to terms with like what that means for her, but also how to move on, how to start a life again after these terrible things have happened to her and everyone she loves is dead. It's definitely a really, really, really difficult read, but I think that there should be more books that are about that after. I think the only other one that I've read is They Went Left by Monica Hesse, which I enjoyed a lot, but I think this was a really good one too. Also, it does have some illustrations in it, which is a fun little addition. There you go. You can hardly see any of them, but I swear they're in there. I finally read These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. Oh my god, can you believe it? I've talked about this book a lot on TBRs and now I need to read the sequel, and then she actually has like another book in the Secret Shanghai world that has come out now. So this one has been out since 2020. Wow, it feels like this one has been out for so much longer. I think just because it's one that has been talked about like so much, it was really hyped up, so it feels like it's been out forever. It seems like I have had this book for years and years and years, but I guess 2020, that seems accurate. I mean, obviously it is, like, I'm not saying that the book is lying to me, but yeah, I've had this since it came out and I've wanted to read it because everyone has been hyping it up, and I did actually really love it. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling set in 1920s Shanghai about rival gangs. There's like some gross elements which I didn't like, but that is because the writing was just so fantastic. I think this is another 2020 release, but The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Finally read this one, another one that has been super hyped up. Like, if a book has a ton of hype, it takes me that much longer to read it because situations have happened where I've been disappointed, and I don't want to be disappointed just because something is like really hyped up. And this one I kind of had mixed feelings on. I listened to the audiobook, which I think if I hadn't been listening to the audiobook, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. The start of it is very slow, but then at the end, I was quite invested in the story. It just kind of was like a lot of ups and downs with how I felt about it. If you are unfamiliar with Addie LaRue, it is about the main character, Addie LaRue, obviously, but she made a deal with the devil that means she's going to live forever, but she will be cursed to be forgotten by everyone she ever meets, which is obviously a really difficult situation. But I thought the storyline was very interesting. It just kind of was slow at times, but then it ended up picking up, just like kind of a roller coaster of a read. Now I'm actually really curious when this one came out. I think it was 2020. Yeah, 2020. Wow, lots of 2020 reads on here. Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one, was this another 2020? I don't actually know, but Malibu Rising, it may have been 2021 actually. Yeah, 2021. So this one is even more recent. However, I think it's one that like was just expected to be read right away, so that's why it feels like one that I finally read, and I thought this one was fine. I don't really have like particular strong feelings either way. Daisy Jones and the Six, loved. Evelyn Hugo, really liked it. I knew way too much hype before that though. I think if I had read it without expecting the hype, would have absolutely loved it, but because there was the hype, was a little bit let down. Malibu Rising, hadn't really heard all that much about, but like, I don't think the story had the same impact on me that the other ones did. I did really enjoy it, but I didn't like fall in love with it, if that makes sense. I also finally read The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller. This is one that I haven't actually physically owned for a while. It's one of those again, but I have talked about wanting to read it and included it on like quite a few wish lists. This one came out in 2020 as well. Why does it feel like 2020 was years ago? I guess it just feels like I've lived like a million lives since 2020, but simultaneously done nothing. Anyways, this was a really fun, like it's described as a Slytherin romance, and I think it very much was that. It was steamy, it like I got very invested, and there were definitely scenes that I was like, ooh, this is quite nice. So yeah, this was really solid and worth the wait. Also finally read Alice by Heart by Stephen Sater. Pretty sure this one actually also came out in 2020. I had kind of put this one off because the reviews for it were not all that great, but I actually ended up enjoying it. It did also come out in 2020. I honestly did not expect these all to be 2020 releases. That's my bad. This one though, definitely very controversial. A lot of people didn't really like it. It's based on the musical. Haven't listened to the musical yet, although I mean, I'm sure that I should, and I probably will soon. I thought it was a solid story though. Not my favorite Alice in Wonderland retelling, but it was different and quite smart too. One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. This was either 2020 once again or a 2021 release. I swear I'm not trying to repeat myself and be like a broken record. This one was 2021. So yeah, this is a 2021 release, but once again, it's kind of one that I've included on quite a few TBRs. It's one that I enjoyed the first book by the author so much that I just felt like I should read this next one right away, but I did finally end up reading it this year and I really, really loved it. This was on my favorites list as well. And finally, another one that actually ended up on my favorites list. I read not the full book, but I did read the graphic novel for The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, which I think since the beginning of my channel, like 7 years ago, I've talked about reading this book. And now I finally read it in some iteration and I loved it. Like, as much as you can, I loved it. It's very morbid, you know, and unsettling, but I still loved it. I also actually have a couple that I don't own anymore that I wanted to mention. So one of those is By a Charm and a Curse by Jamie Questel. I have had this book for a very, very long time, I think since this one came out, and I thought it sounded really interesting. I was really excited for it, but I ended up DNFing it. So this one definitely didn't quite live up to my expectations and wasn't exactly worth the wait. Same thing with 13 Doorways, Wolves Behind Them All by Laura Ruby. This is another one that I don't think I owned physically for like a super long time, but I had my eye on it, and another one that I actually ended up DNFing. It was just very confusing and I wanted it to be like so much more and so much better than what it was, which was really disappointing. Okay, so those are all of the books that I've had for a super long time and I finally ended up reading this year. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'm definitely hoping to continue this momentum of like reaching for books that I've had for a very long time into 2023. So fingers crossed that I can actually do that. But thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I will see you tomorrow for Bookmas Day 17, where I am going to be reacting to my 5-star predictions from last year and seeing if I actually ended up giving them 5 out of 5 stars. So I will see you in that video tomorrow. Bye!